So I've officially hit 10,000 subscribers, and yeah, I never expected to get this far. I mean, hell, I never expected to hit 1,000 subscribers. I really appreciate this, and I couldn't have done it without your support, which, I mean, that's kind of obvious considering, you know, you need an audience to support you to gain an audience, but you know what I'm trying to say. I really appreciate all of the support you guys have given me, and I wanted to do a 10,000 subscriber special to thank all of you. However, I had a hard time thinking of ideas. After thinking about it for a while, though, the idea came to me kind of naturally. Thinking about it, right, as a 10,000 subscriber special, it probably makes sense to do my most requested video topic, and that's why I'm going to be ranking every single top one from worst to best. Now, full disclosure, there's a lot of nuance and confusion into what you consider to be a top one, and I find all of this very confusing, so I'm just going to use Stormfly's list on top of Modern Knowledge, and I hope that that isn't too controversial, because if you want to be technical with top ones, you can get into a lot of technicalities, right? For example, if you want to talk about what would have been top one if you disregard community belief and what was hacked and just go for the factual, this was the hardest level that was legitimately verified when it was released, the list would look a lot different, because there would be levels on there that, you know, aren't on there. On top of that, you get into levels that would have been top one if they were rated sooner, stuff like Oblivion, and then you get into levels that would have been top one if the community wasn't wrong, stuff like Sonic Wave Infinity. And that's just, in general, where all of this goes. And because of all this confusion, I'm just going to use Stormfly's list, and I'm going off of community beliefs at the time of the level's release, and so this will include all the hack top ones and all that stuff. So I hope that explains the groundwork for the list, and with all that being said, let's get right into it. So first up, we have Abyss of Darkness as the worst level on the list, and I know that this will ruffle some feathers, but keep in mind this is a biased list. Abyss of Darkness just blows, in my opinion. The decoration is really lame and uninspired, so is the gameplay. I don't even mean to in a playing sense, it's just one of those levels that isn't even that visually stimulating to watch the gameplay. It's not something where I get excited watching people play it or anything like that. It's just lame looking. And on top of that, it's just not that creative of gameplay. It just feels like a level that is a bunch of condensed challenge list gameplay for a long span of time. I also don't like the song. I don't know what MIDI kit was used in the DAW when they were writing this, because the Death Note song isn't necessarily that bad, but my god, the sound effects used in this song are just irritating and annoying, and I just don't like them. I don't like this song, it's really irritating. In general, Abyss of Darkness is just a very boring level. It's the very definitive example of a hacker just making a top one because they feel like it and nothing more. It's uninspired, it's bad, it's boring, I don't like it. So next up we have Element 111RG, and I feel like no one will disagree with this being at the bottom of the list, let's be real, but I'm gonna explain it anyway. So before even getting into what's bad about this level, I actually want to give it some credit, which I know is weird, but I just want to be nice to the level for a second and say, for making impossible gameplay, or impossible at the time at least, this level was insanely creative. Even to this day, some of the ways this level abuses the game's physics is very fascinating to me, and I don't mind it. I think it's kind of cool. Obviously, it blows to play, but it wasn't designed to be possible back then. It was made by a literal cheater, so, you know, whatever. Verified with a secret way, you get the idea. But the way this level makes itself difficult is really, really cool to me. I like the breakable block gimmick, as awful as it is to play, how you have to straight fly between two breakable blocks, and just in general stuff like that is really, really cool. This level is just very interesting in terms of how it abuses the game's physics. That's about where the positive things I have to say about the level end, though, as literally every other aspect of the level sucks. Aside of how creative it is, the gameplay is awful to play, something that, even though I'm not good enough to play the level, I can understand how bad this level is to play, despite not being able to play it. It's also super unbalanced, like, really unbalanced. I also think the decoration is bad. And I know that sounds weird to criticize a level of this age for the decoration, but I'm saying lowering my standards to that era of the game, the decoration is bad. This is one of those levels where it abused the fact that RobTop would only look at the first few seconds of a level to see whether or not it should get rated. And because of that, at the very beginning of the level, it uses a lot of Electroman Adventures style objects, but then the farther in you get, the more it just looks like a basic-ass 1.0 level, and I just think that that's really lame. The structuring is uninspired, and in general, it just looks bad. But the thing that makes this level go so low down on the list to me is that I swear to God DarkX was creating lost media intentionally. Like, this is so hard to find, and it's literally because the creator went out of their way to make sure no one could see it without beating it themselves, which no one was beating it themselves back then. It's to the point where, and if you want to know more about this, I recommend watching Stormfly's video about the restoration, but it's to the point where people would try to make autos of the level. Like, DarkX tried to make someone make an auto of it, and the person's like, sure, I can make an auto of it. Can you show me what the level looks like? He's like, no. You have to, like, play it yourself in practice to figure it out. Which is like, oh, well, fantastic. It's kind of funny because this level is a really shitty attempt at doing what Banshee is doing in the modern day, which Banshee also kind of failed at it, but in the opposite way because, you know, Space UK kind of showcased the level against everyone's will, but that's beside the point. Element 111RG is just a very, very bad level all around. It's bad in terms of its presentation and, well, lack of it because the creator didn't want anyone to fucking see it. It was bad in terms of its gameplay, its decoration, everything about this level is uninspired and bad and terrible, and literally the only thing I know I can say about it that's nice is that DarkX really understood the physics back then, which is kind of odd from an era where people couldn't even straight fly. So next up we have Heaven and Hell. So this level is what would happen if you took RG, you added one bad thing, and you removed one bad thing. In this case, Heaven and Hell has worse gameplay, and by that I mean it's less inspired and it's way less creative. In this case, there's a lot of orb spam and straight fly, and it's just very lazy in terms of how its gameplay was made. But at least the creator didn't intentionally create lost media with this one. Jokes aside, I definitely think this level is just very boring. It's always been the old Hacktop one that I cared about the least, and yeah, I think that's for good reason. This level's kind of dog shit. And now we have Sakupin Circles. This list is already fucking disgusting, Jesus Christ. So Sakupin Circles, I have talked about this one at length, but the short version, just to condense it for this video, is this was a impossible level verified in the modern day, because impossible things are not impossible anymore, and that's impressive, I guess. Yeah, this is lame, because under that logic, what if I told you they nerfed the level? It's really lame. It's really lame. I get it. Playing Sakupin Circles with the unnerfed wave spam wouldn't be fun. But at the same time, you're verifying an impossible level. It's not going to be fun to begin with. This is literally like if a challenge list player was in charge of verifying an impossible level. They take the one part they find fun, and they leave that unnerfed, and then everything else stays nerfed. It's really bad. The approach that was taken with this level was awful, and I think it'd have been way cooler if the community waited a couple years until they gained the skill to be able to do the wave spam, because as it stands, this is a very disappointing level just off the back that it was nerfed alone. I will, however, give it this. The decoration is really, really good. Unfortunately, most people play it in the low details, so you never get to see it, but I do have to acknowledge that the decoration looks good. So next up we have Stalemate Redux, and this one being this low is probably going to piss some people off, and here's the thing. I can't justify this level being this low, but I'm still putting it low because I'm biased. Yeah, the level visually looks good, and the gameplay from what I've heard isn't even that bad. But I don't know why, I just irrationally hate Stalemate Redux, and I don't even care enough to justify it. Like, I just hate this level so much, I don't even want to give it the time of day to review it. Is it irrational? Completely. It is absolutely irrational, but for whatever reason, this level just always got under my skin in a way that I don't know how to describe. It's just such a awful level. I feel like everyone has that one thing where there's not actually anything wrong with it and everyone else likes it, but for whatever reason you just don't like it, even if you can't justify why. It's just this irrational hatred. That's this level for me. I just kind of don't like it, and I don't even know why. I will say, however, and to be nice to this level, this is the first good level of the list, so yeah, there we go. So for the next one, I just placed both of the top 1 Hell series levels. I have the Hell World and the Hell Origin. They both suck, and in the exact same way. I don't see anything in these levels. They're basically Element 111RG without the mystical lost media thing, and the only thing that makes these levels good is that the gameplay is slightly more tolerable. That's literally it. These levels are absolutely terrible. So the next one I have here is Silent Club, and this is where the gameplay in this list pretty much starts to get interesting and where I start to give a shit about the gameplay, so expect me to talk about the gameplay a little bit more. Again, not in terms of playing the levels, because unless we're talking about the super early levels like BP Night or Demon World, I really can't play these, so, you know, I'm not talking about enjoyment or anything like that. It's all just creativity in the gameplay, how interesting the gameplay is to watch, how if it does something that hadn't been done before, so on and so forth. So I have more to say about the gameplay here and now, and Silent Club is a perfect baseline minimum. This level has dog shit gameplay, but at the very least, it's interesting enough to discuss. This level is, for the most part, doable. A lot of this isn't too hard. The parts that make it hard are the orb spam parts, which are really dog shit and are the reason this is so low. I hate orb spam like this, and I hate the fact that this is starting to make its way into actual projects, because this is really, really annoying. I hate orb spam like this. It is terrible. Next up we have Sakupin Hell, and I think this is the perfect baseline for good deco. I really like Sakupin Hell's deco. Unfortunately, I still despise this level. Not only is the gameplay kind of lame, but it's also really, really repetitive. But to go off of even farther from that, my god, the motivation the creator had when making this level just annoys me. They basically saw Cataclysm, you know, a hack top 1, and they were like, oh, so this person was able to hack a level and still have it get verified and rated. What if I hack a level and have it get verified and rated? And so they did that, and they basically made fucking Cataclysm if it sucked. So, you know, bad level. So next up we have Plasma Pulse Finale. Yeah, this one is low mainly just because of how dated it feels. Like, this is a 2.1 level, and yet I was actually convinced this was like a shitty 2.0 level that got verified in 2.1. I don't get why this level looks so bad and so bland. And on top of that, the song rep really isn't that good in my opinion. Like, yeah, it's got the bare minimum amount of sync you need possible, but there are some parts where the song speeds up and the level just stays the same speed. It's just not very good. And on top of that, the gameplay is also very lackluster. I'm not a very big fan of it. Again, visually, I can't really talk about how enjoyable it is to play, but yeah, I just don't care for this level. So next up we have the Hell Zone. The reason why this is higher than the rest of the Hell series is because the Hell Zone's gameplay is actually kinda good. I like the gameplay in the Hell Zone, just not the rest of the series. This was, I believe, the first? Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure this was the first of the Hell series, and yeah, the gameplay of this one's actually pretty solid. I like it, but the rest of the series, not a big fan. But yeah, the gameplay in this level, very fun to play, and this is one of the few where I can say that, because it's just easy enough to where I have practiced it a bit. And Hellzone is pretty fun. I like this level. Visually, it's also pretty interesting. I like the way some of the structuring was done. It's just a cool level all around. Okay, so for this next one, I have to make a bit of a distinction. If the level was like a hack top 1, and then after it was a hack top 1, it got nerfed, and the nerfed version is the current official version, I'm going to be talking about the nerfed version and not the top 1 version. I know that seems counterintuitive, but I just think for, like, the next level to come up, a lot of the times the reason they were nerfed is to improve the level, and I don't want to give the levels an unfair shot in the ranking, because usually, in the case of the next level, the nerfed version is the one people will end up playing, so just keep that in mind as we talk about the next level. So next up we have Theory of Darkness. Not very original, it's just a Theory of Everything remake. However, I will say this is some of the best gameplay I've played in a Theory of Everything remake. This level's pretty solid, and see, this level has a bit of an unfortunate history because it was a hack top 1 that came out right when Riot started to gain popularity and right when level integrity started to be taken seriously. previously, and so because it was a hack top 1, at like the worst possible time to be a hack top 1, this level got completely fucking hammered with criticism, and so the creator nerfed it, and when he went to nerf it, he couldn't update the level, so he moved it to a different account, and requested that the moved version be rated and the current version be unrated. So Rob unrated the level, but didn't rate the new version. So just a bit of an unfortunate history with this level, and I think it doesn't deserve to have that history, because it's a legitimately good level, and I think this level deserves more love and praise, because it's actually really fun. Again, not very original, it's just a Theory of Everything remake, which is why it's so low, but I actually do really like this level. So next up we have Fexty, and Fexty is a level that I just kind of have a hard time caring about. It looks okay, the decoration is certainly subpar for 1.9, but it's okay, and the gameplay kind of reminds me of map pack levels like Laser Room, which I'm not a big fan of, so yeah. It's also got some really big difficulty spikes, so I don't know. This level is kind of just okay, and that's why I have it here. So next up we have Tidal Wave, and there's a lot I do not like about Tidal Wave. I made a whole video talking about why I don't like Tidal Wave. That video really only focuses on the negative, and in fairness that makes sense, because it's a video explaining why I don't like the level. However, Tidal Wave does have some redeeming factors. Most importantly, the fact that the gameplay is really, really fun to watch and to play. And I know I can't actually say that for myself, but I'm just going off of everyone's opinion. It is one of the very rare top 1s where everyone who plays it almost unanimously agrees that it is a good level. The only people I've seen who don't like it are people who can't play it, which, you know, similar to me, you're not really qualified to give a gameplay opinion at that point. I think for me, I may not like Tidal Wave, but at the very least I respect it, and I think the reason for that is because of how this level seems to just bring everyone together. Everyone likes this level, whether it be because of the gameplay or because they're defending the deco and saying it's not that bad. The only real controversy around Tidal Wave are people arguing about whether or not it should get rated, but if you guys know anything about my opinion, no matter how bad a level is, as long as it's a finished level that doesn't have any issues, it should get rated. And by issues, I mean functionality, like it doesn't have accidental or intentional secret ways and stuff like that. A functional finished level should get rated no matter what, and so yeah, that's kind of that. But ignoring all of that, Tidal Wave is a level, it's fun, everyone seems to like it, and because of that I respect it, because it's managed to bring a lot of people together and do a lot of good for the GD community. Next up we have Bloodlust and Bloodbath, which I have put together. Bloodlust may look significantly better than Bloodbath, but I still see these two as basically just being the same levels, Bloodlust being an upgrade from Bloodbath. That being said, both of these levels pretty much have the exact same pros and cons. The gameplay sucks, that's one of the bad things. The level did a lot to push the community forward and did a lot of good for the community, which is what the level has going for it. They both also have good deco for their time. Bloodlust looked really good in 2.1, Bloodbath looked really good in 1.9, 2.0. And so, you know, it's just kind of a thing where I'm going to lump the two levels together. Though, if you're curious, Bloodbath goes above Bloodlust, because I think Bloodlust in a lot of places looks really cluttered and honestly a bit over-decorated, which is something that I tend to not like. Next up, we have Sonic Wave. Yeah, Sonic Wave, a level that I really love, but I also acknowledge is absolute dog shit. It is horribly unbalanced and really unfun to play. I just love it because this was the first hard level I had ever seen from the community. In fact, this level, seeing it is pretty much the thing that motivated me to buy the full version of Geometry Dash, because while I had played long before this, and while I had watched content of the game long before this, I was on the light version. My experience of the full version of GD really came from content on YouTube, and so if it wasn't for Sonic Wave, there's a legitimate chance that I would never have actually gotten the full version of GD. I wouldn't be here at 10,000 subscribers, talking into a microphone, uploading this video, and having people watch me. So yeah, I really, really care about this level. It did a lot for me as a person. Above that, we have Yatagarasu, or as I like to call it, Bloodbath 2. Yeah, this level's not good. This level is not good at all. It is definitely a step up from Bloodbath, but I feel like that's not a very high bar, because Bloodbath, it's fine, and it did a lot to push the community, but let's be real, the gameplay isn't that great, and the deco was good enough in 1.9. It was good deco, especially for its time, but it just really hasn't aged well, in my opinion. Yada has aged even worse. This is a level that is absolutely trapped in 2.0, and it'll never get out of that update. This level just looks bad all around. I don't like a single part of this level visually. I think it's all very bad looking. I think it's all very cluttered. I think it's all just very mute and boring, and I don't like Yada. On top of that, I don't like Yada's gameplay. Yada is the level on this list that I could talk about the most endlessly. I hate Yada, but we're just gonna move on or else we'll be here all day. Next up we have Stereodemoness, and this level is really, really bad gameplay with some amazing decoration. I know it hasn't aged the best visually, but for the time, this had to have been one of the first, like, stunning and really good art levels. This level is really, really cool looking, and I really like it, and yeah, I like the art in this level. I think it was done really well. Very underappreciated level, all things considered. So, yeah. Demon World, a level that is very bad, yet oddly kind of fun, also really unbalanced. This wouldn't be a top 1 if it wasn't for this random straight fly part that just kind of appears, but yeah, there's not much to say about this. It's just your typical old level, nothing really going on for it. It's just a level that exists, but I'm putting it a bit higher because it's the first of these levels that's really, really fun, and this is one of the very rare ones that I've actually completed. So next up we have Phobos. This level hasn't aged the best in terms of its deco. A lot of it looks really good. In fact, I'd say a majority of it does, but there are a couple parts here and there that just look really messy or out of place and just really random all in terms of just everything. It's just one of those levels that you can tell was made in that transitional period between 1.9 and 2.0. It's very... there's just a lot of out-of-place stuff in it. Gameplay is kind of the same way. There's a lot of good, and then there's a lot of bad, and the bad hits you very randomly. I don't know. It's a very weird level, very mixed bag, but I don't mind Phobos. I think it's pretty cool. And now we have Demon Park, the one that started everything, and I think this level's a bit of a masterpiece. I don't think there's a single part of this level I hate in terms of its gameplay. It's really early, so there really isn't anything to talk about in terms of deco, but the structuring is really solid for the era. And yeah, Demon Park is definitely a solid level. Next up we have Extreme Park. This is a memory level, and one of the first memory levels, and it's a lot of fun. I really like Extreme Park. It definitely is hard to remember where you're supposed to go, which is the point of a memory level, but it's a very hard memory level, especially for the time. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's one of those levels where even if you know what you're supposed to do, it's just really easy to forget during a run. And I think that that's kind of cool because it prepares you for a lot of harder memory later down the line. Of course, again, nothing to write home about in terms of its deco. Structuring really solid. Honestly, I give this a similar review to Demon Park, just with the other thing to point out that it's the first memory level, which is really interesting. Next up we have To the Grave. This level is basically what happens if you take ideas presented in Demon Park and ideas presented in Extreme Park and mesh them together to create the sort of ultimate top 1. Back when there were only 3 top 1s, because obviously, you know. But this level is a really good culmination of just what a lot of old hard levels from the time were like, and I definitely think that makes it a blast to go back and play this. To the Grave is a very solid level. So next up we have Can't Let Go by Rob Top Games. okay, so look, I I get it. It might be really funny, and on top of that, a lot of people probably wouldn't consider this to be a top 1, but if you want to be technical, this was technically the hardest level in the game at one point, just by proxy, because it was one of the first levels that people had access to, and it was the hardest of that batch of first. If you're wondering why it's this and not Jumper, well, according to my community, everyone seems to think Can't Let Go is actually harder than Jumper, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you replaced Can't Let Go with Jumper, it'd be in the exact same spot, but yeah, I just wanted to include this because I thought that'd be really funny. Next up we have Digital Descent, and quite simply, I think this level is worse than Artificial Ascent. It's worse visually, it's worse in terms of its gameplay. I just simply don't like Digital Descent, but it still has an insane level of polish and still looks really good despite all of that. So yeah, goes here. So next up we have Future Demoness. I used to like this level a lot until I realized that it was very song carried. The song is a great choice, but unfortunately it's a Nong. Now the level just uses Supernova, but ignoring that, dear God, this level is awful. Terrible gameplay, trust me, I've attempted it. I was going for it and I dropped it for a reason. The decoration is also not that great, at least in my opinion. I'm just not a very big fan of Future Demoness. I think this level is kind of overrated, and I'm not a big fan of it. Next up we have Ice Carbon Diablo X. And you know what? I'm gonna say something that no human has ever said before. Ice Carbon Diablo X is the most fun fucking demon I have ever played. Now look, I know, I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this. Yes, it's very choke point heavy. Yes, the ship parts are really awful, but this has to be the most consistent level I've ever played. I'm going for it, and I'm not that great at it, admittedly, but I've been having a lot of fun playing this in practice mode, and I'm hoping that at some point I can beat this, because I've been really enjoying this. It is very hard, though, and I'm not certain I'll be able to see it through, but it is a lot of fun. Next up we have Silent Clubstep. Yes, I get it, this is probably the most unfun level to play on this entire list, but you know what? I really like this level. I think the decoration is really, really cool, especially for the time. I think that it plays interestingly. It doesn't play well, but it plays interestingly. I think a lot of the ways this level pushed the physics of the game is just very fascinating and very interesting. Good? Absolutely not, but I think Silent Clubstep is just a very interesting level to dissect and poke at with a stick. It's a very studyable level, and I kind of like that about it. After that, we have Tartarus, and now is where we start to get to the levels that I think are genuinely good. Tartarus is, as you probably know if you've seen Ranking the Demon List, I gave this one a 7 out of 10, and I know that that can sell this level short, so I want to really emphasize, for what this level set out to do, it is extremely creative, and knowing that this level started production around the time Riot was verifying Bloodbath, this level is insanely ahead of its time. It's really, really cool, and I don't know how this level was made in the way it is. It falls into the category is raw as fuck, which is a category of levels that have been very popular lately. And yeah, I describe Tartarus as being a very raw level. It's unpolished, but it's still very pleasing to look at. A lot of the parts are very memorable. The only thing I dislike about it is the swing copter. Tartarus has a very awful swing copter, but aside of that, I think it's a really, really solid level. Next up, we have Crimson Planet, and I'm about to utter what might be the most controversial words I've ever spoken, but I don't care. I'm a reviewer, and I review things based off of my own criteria and whether or not I personally like them. It is a biased review. Crimson Planet makes Bloodlust look bad. Crimson Planet is just Bloodlust if you made it way more polished and way less over-decorated. Yeah, I know, get mad at me all you want, but I fucking love Crimson Planet. So next up we have Cataclysm, and this is the hardest level on here that I have completed, and I'm not gonna say Cataclysm is bad, but it is definitely not very fun to play. It is extremely choke point heavy, so much so that I can list off the choke points verbatim. So there's the wave click at 13%, there is the first ship where all the portals are invisible and you have to do some very awkward maneuvering in through those portals, so you have to basically memorize where they are. And then you have the 41% ship where you have to awkwardly transition into an upside down straight fly, which is really jank. And then of course the entirety of the last straight fly, which literally, like, okay, there's a part where the upside down straight fly and all that, it becomes a dual straight fly, and in that dual you're misaligned, and so you're closer to the spikes on the bottom than the top, which makes it way tighter than it looks. It is because of that that I hate this ship. I also had a bad experience with it, but I'm trying to not let that affect my opinion on the level, but it's just, I'm pointing it out. I died to the 4-block straight fly at the very end to a lag spike, and because of that, this level will always be a sort of mental, like, piece of trauma. Fuck Cataclysm for that final straight fly's existence. Which is funny, too, because Old Cata didn't have that. Old Cata, you just rested on the ground, so, yeah, that's Riot's doing. Fuck you, Riot. All those choke points aside, though, when you don't take those into account, the rest of Cata's gameplay is really fun. I mean, put it this way, the entire reason I went for Cata was because I would do runs on the easier part, and I had a fluke run from the ball to 100 by mistake. And that showed me that I was able to beat the level. If it wasn't for that fluke run, I wouldn't have beaten it, and I was only doing that fluke run because I enjoyed doing runs on Cata, so you know, I'd say that by process of elimination, Kata can be pretty fun aside of the choke points. It's one of those levels that's very fun in practice mode, but awful to play from zero, if that tells you anything. The decoration in Kata, however, is the thing that needs to be discussed the most. Kata's decoration is revolutionary for the time, and I don't think we had seen anything like it. I think there are parts in this level that are breathtaking and visually aged well even to this day. I think Cataclysm's deco is the main reason it was so popular, and yeah, Kata is definitely a level that deserves to stand the test of time despite the awful choke pointy gameplay. So yeah, I like Cataclysm. Next up we have BP Knight, and this one is really funny because this is the level that dethroned Demon World. This level is easier than Demon Park. Drastically, actually. It's probably around 6-star, if not maybe 8-star difficulty. It's really easy, and the reason why this dethroned Demon World is because back then people were really bad at the ball game mode. That's literally the only reason, I'm not joking. BP Knight is a ridiculously fun level. It's another one that I've completed, and I definitely recommend you all go seek this one out and beat it. It has a secret way as well, which is actually why it's this low. It would probably be higher if it wasn't for the fact that it was verified with a secret way. This level's a lot of fun. That's why it's where it is. Next up we have Artificial Ascent. This is the best theming in a top one, in my opinion. Thematically, this level is really good. It's all themed around, well, the ascent of the artificial ascent. It's in the name. It is the uprising of technology, and I feel like that theme was nailed really, really well, with all of the level being core and tech style, and I think that that works really, really well. There are some parts that bleed into glow style a little bit, but that works too. And I think this is a very coherent level. Every single part fits well together, and all of the parts in this level look good. I don't think there's a single part that I'd describe as outdated, and to this day, it looks really, really well. To think that this started as a Cataclysm sequel is just really a good way to show that not any, like, there is no such thing as a bad idea, basically. Any idea can be a good one if you execute it well. Artificial Ascent is really solid. Next up we have Erebus, and I think Erebus is really solid. The level looks really nice, and unfortunately I can't really talk about the gameplay on this one as I'm not good enough to play it, and a lot of people have said it plays badly, but I'm not going to take their word for that. I have no idea if Erebus is fun or not, and I'm not going to talk about the gameplay. What I will say about the gameplay, though, is that it's very visually entertaining. I really like watching gameplay of Erebus. I think it's a really cool level to watch. My only complaint is that it's given this weird limitation where it's only really using the color green. I feel like if there was a little bit more variety in colors, it would be a lot better, but I still like Erebus a lot. I think it's pretty good. Next up we have Firework. This level has a really good decoration, and I really, really like it. My only complaint is that Firework is one of those levels that drags on way longer than it needs to. It feels like this is footage of 2 levels combined, but no, it's just one. Firework is way too long, in my opinion, and it just feels dragged out, but despite that, there's a lot of really good here. I really like the theming, sort of this grayscale death theme, which is executed really well. And there are also some unique gameplay parts, like the little wave jitter that Trick buffed to shit, and then there's also the orb ship thing, I don't know what to call it. Overall, this level has a lot to make it very memorable, but unfortunately, it's also kind of bland at the same time, and that mainly is because of the color scheme. As good as this level looks, grayscale always will be a style that's very hard to make stick out, and unfortunately, this level does have a little bit of an identity issue when it comes to just its decoration because of how limited the color scheme is. However, I will say, despite that being the case, the decoration does manage to look really good here. Next up we have Zodiac. Zodiac is another situation like Firework where the level drags on a little bit too long. It just feels like it overstays its welcome a little bit. That being said, I really like Zodiac. I think the decoration is really solid. My only complaint with it, and the reason it's not higher, is, ignoring the fact the deco is outdated in some parts, the decoration has another very big issue where it doesn't really connect the parts too well together. A lot of parts look unrelated to each other in a way that's very jarring, you know what I mean? Like, Samifying's part is literally just sedulous and stuff like that. It's just a very discoordinate level, and it doesn't really know what it's trying to do, I feel like, but despite that, I still really like it, and I think it's really charming. So now that we're entering into the top 5 best top 1 demons, I need to explain a little thing, just to give you some context as to where my head is at with these levels. So when it comes to top 1s, I actually apply an extra bit of mental criteria to them, and I'm going to explain that here. It's not anything of me trying to apply objectivity or anything like that, it's just a place my head goes. So this is the thing that separates a good level from a good top 1 for me. Good top 1s, in my opinion, need to feel like top 1s, and what I mean by that is top 1s, in my opinion, have always been the final boss of the game, right? And so to be a good top 1, in my opinion, it needs to intimidate the player, and you need to be able to look at it and know it's difficult just at a glance, right? You need to be able to just kind of look over someone's shoulder and understand that what they're playing is hard. And this is what separates a level like Bloodbath from a level like Phexty for me. The reason I explain that here is because with this top 5, I am not necessarily saying these are the top 5 best levels out of the top 1s. I'm saying these are the top 5 best top 1s. They work the best at the top of the list. I am in no way saying that one of these levels is better than another. Going back down the list, for example, and stuff we've already looked at, I'm not necessarily saying Bloodbath is better than Phexty. I'm more saying that Bloodbath works more as a top 1 than Phexty does, and I hope that that clears some things up considering what my top 5 is going to be. So with that being said, let's continue. So next up we have Avernus, and I think Avernus is a very solid level. It's got a lot of problems, which we'll get into in a second, but just at a glossary glance, I think it looks really, really pleasing. It's got really good decoration. I think it does the Hell style pretty well, sort of being themed around traveling through the Lake of Avernus to find the Gates of Hell. I think that that's done really well, which also works when you consider this is a sequel to the Golden, which is, you know, traveling through an ancient jungle looking for the city of El Dorado. I think that both of these levels tie in very nicely with each other, and I think that that's done pretty well. However, of course, Avernus has some massive issues, like the fact that everything is just on one layer, so it can't be optimized, or the fact that they use fixed hitboxes, which doesn't affect the gameplay. Heavy misconception there. I don't think the fixed hitboxes are bad because it makes the gameplay unfun. It's just bad from a game design perspective to have 2 spikes that look identical, but one has a tighter hitbox than the other. It's not a good move, in my opinion. All of that being said, though, I still think Avernus is a pretty good level, and yeah, I think it deserves its place up in the best of the best when it comes to the top 1s. After that, we have the Golden. The Golden is a very similar situation to Avernus. Just take Avernus, make it not hell-themed, and remove literally every single problem the level has. Then you have the Golden. The Golden actually has a completely different problem, however, and that's it's really hard to see the level. You need to be on specific hardware in a specific environment to be able to see the decoration, because if you're on like a phone, or if you're in a room that's way too bright, like if there's a lamp right next to your desk or something along those lines, you're not going to be able to see it. You need to have a good monitor, and you need to turn the lights in your room down, because yeah, the decoration for this level is really, really dark. I'm gonna brighten up the footage in editing so you can see the level a little bit better, but yeah, that's all that, yeah. In my opinion, the Golden looks really, really good and deserves all of the love it gets. It's got some really solid gameplay from what other people have said, and while I can't verify that for myself, I can at least say that I find watching gameplay of the Golden really, really entertaining. The wave movements in this level especially I find really good, and they don't overstay their welcome, and the level's not too focused on the wave. They just have cool wave movements. I also think that the color scheme and the shading is done really well. Again, I just wish it was a little bit brighter, but that's beside the point. It's a very good level to look at, it's a very good level to watch people play, and for that reason, it definitely makes it into the top 5. Next up, we have a Thanatos, and I actually can speak on this level's gameplay, as I've practiced it a little bit. I'm nowhere near beating it, because it is way too hard for me, but I've just played it a little bit because I find the level fun, and I say that to say that I find the level fun. A lot of the parts people complain about, like the odd transition into the dual wave, for instance, I don't think are as bad as people make them out to be. I find the gameplay in this level very manageable and very fun. I also think this is one of the best Hell levels, just in general. It's really well done. I've always said that Hell levels themselves are not bad, it's generic red and black glow that's bad, and this is not generic red and black glow. This does the Hell theme really well in my opinion, and I'm really impressed by Athanatos. It's a fun level to play, it has good decoration, it's a fun level to look at, it's a fun level to watch. I like Athanatos. Next up we have Acheron. I am going to praise this first of all on the song choice, which I don't see people doing a lot. Acheron is one of those few levels that I feel like is identifiable just by its song alone, and I really think they nailed it with the song choice. That being said, the decoration in this level, it's 1.9 styled, which would normally be an issue, however, there was a lot of polish put into this, unlike Tartarus, so the 1.9 style still feels very modernized in a way that I like. It opts in for a sort of grayscale theme, which I think is pretty okay here. It's kind of interesting that we went from Hell to grayscale, but I think it works well, especially when you consider the way the deco just in general looks. I don't know if this level has a general theme, but it always gave me the vibe of being death-themed, sort of like Firework. Especially with the beginning, when you're going through all the Clubstep monsters as the cube. To me, with the way that some of them are missing teeth and some of them are missing blocks, it always looked like these were the skulls of Clubstep monsters, so to speak, and I always thought that that looked really cool. I think that this level also looks really entertaining to watch the gameplay of, like usual. I've been saying that a lot, but the gameplay of Acheron is really satisfying, especially, I don't know why, but these little mini wave gaps always just pleased me in a way that's very hard to describe. They're just really satisfying, and this is one of the few levels where a ship straight fly gives me the same level of satisfaction as something along the lines of a mini wave gap. It's really hard to explain, but they made the straight fly sections feel like wave sections. It's really odd. It's actually kind of a flow level if you think about it, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the level really ties itself well together, and yeah, I really like Acheron. And that leaves us with what I consider the best top one to be. Slaughterhouse. Look, I'm just gonna say it. Slaughterhouse is an absolute masterpiece when it comes to difficult levels. As a level, is it lacking? Sure, it's missing backgrounds, the decoration's a little bit lackluster in some parts, and there are definitely issues with it. On top of that, in the gameplay department, there are issues visually with the gameplay, like, in general, I just find the pre-drop boring, and I know a lot of people will just skip to the drop when they look at footage of Slaughterhouse, which, fair enough. But all in all, I just definitely think that Slaughterhouse is a really good level to show someone if you want to convey how difficult GD can get, which is what you want out of a top one, and because of that, I think Slaughterhouse is the best top one. And that concludes my ranking of every single top one from worst to best. This is, like I said, probably my most requested video topic, and that's why I thought it was a good video to give you all for the 10,000 subscriber special. Keep in mind, I do think that this video seems a little dry in the recording process, so I'm a little sorry if the reviews are very dry in the video, or if the video just comes across as dry, but that's kind of why it's been hard to put this video out to begin with. But I figured for 10K, I'd do something y'all really wanted me to do, so here you go. I don't plan on talking about top ones that often. I consider this video to be a bit of a one-off, but it's a one-off that I enjoyed making. Sometimes it is nice to appreciate the bigger achievements of the GD community and the broader scope, so yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, you know, usual YouTuber interaction reminder stuff, like and comment, all that. Comment below your thoughts on these levels. Is there a level you like that I dislike, or vice versa? Is there a level that you think should have been higher, or that you would have put higher? Let me know. I don't mind talking about it in the comments, and yeah, thank you for watching.